Hey everybody, Nicole Prigge-Taylor of Coldwell Banker Central, and I am here to talk to you about what the heck has been going on in the market in November. So how's the real estate market looking in Ellensburg, Washington, November of 2021? So home prices, the median sold price was $411. The number of homes that sold was 36, and this sold price increased by 20.4% from $341.5 the previous year. I think this is the number one thing that everyone is concentrating on. I mean, the grocery store, the post office, I mean, wherever you go, everyone and their mother wants to talk about home prices and how crazy they are. But we have to take into consideration interest rates. More on that later. But this is just what's going on in the market in November. Looking at new listings, this is another important factor to consider because I hear from so many people there's just like nothing on the market, that it's not what they're looking for. And I think the big thing, the big buyer takeaway that I have seen is that there are homes on the market. It just means that you have to be diligent and you have to move as fast as the market does. So in 2021, Ellensburg, year to date, so from January 1 to the very end of November, we've had 468 active listings. In 2020, it was 426, and in 2019, 402. So we've actually had a fairly sizable increase in the number of homes that are turning over, that are popping up on the market as active and ready to be sold. Speaking of pending sales in the month of November, we have seen this number go up, up, and up. So in 2019, in the month of November, there were 25 pending sales. In 2020, 39, and in 2021, 45. Which that's almost twice as many pending sales in a 2-year time span. So the inventory is out there. You just, as a buyer, have to be proactive and ready to go. Which brings me to closed sales. So while the year-to-date number sold is a little bit higher, 376 versus 358 for 2020 versus 2021, monthly, it's fairly, we're still trying to find an average, I would say, for the month of November, because 2019 there were 23 closed sales in November, that's pretty low. In 2020 there were 40, 2021 36, that's marginally close enough. The big takeaway here is for sellers. It is not as crazy of a seller's market as it was, so we need to inform our expectations as sellers that it's likely your home isn't going to post on a Thursday and be sold by Monday, as far as under contract sold. And it's likely that you, instead of, in the summer, we were seeing 8, 9, 10, 12 offers on places. That likely won't happen anymore, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, just the reminder I'm going to keep driving home is that all you need as a seller is one willing and able buyer that is solidly, financially stable. They got sexy finances. All you need is one that wants to make it to the end of that transaction. If you have any questions, this is a great time, drop them in the comments below and let's have a little chat. Looking at mortgage rates. So this is the big one that I want to talk to people about, especially if you are in the rental market currently. So this would be a first-time home buyer. If you are a seller, I want to talk to you too, and I'll tell you why. And if you are thinking about upgrading your space. So in November of 2020, interest rates, according to the national average for 30-year fixed Freddie Mac, 2.77%. That's like a ridiculously, obnoxiously low interest rate. I'm kind of jealous. Currently, that same average from Freddie Mac, month of November 2021, 3.1%. Now, the projection is that by mid-2022, so let's look May, June, July, interest rates are going to be up to 3.5%. The reason this is important is as those interest rates climb, let's say that you're looking at a home that's $350,000. As that interest rate climbs, the only thing that's going to change is the amount of money that you have to pay every single month for that same $350,000. So in 2020, let's look at it, $1,433, 2021, $1,495, mid-2022, with that projected interest rate of 3.5%, $1,572. So you're going to pay $159 more than 2 years previous for the same cost, for the same bundle for the same amount of lended money. So this is the cost of waiting. If you are thinking that you are ready to buy in the next 6 months, now would be an extremely advantageous time as a buyer to buy. In the next 6 months to 12 months, it's also going to be an advantageous time as a seller to sell, because while it is still a seller's market, your market is constrained by the lending power of buyers. If buyers cannot afford your home at your price point, a couple things have to happen. Either you have to wait or you have to come down and meet them where they're at. Just food for thought, things to consider. Mortgage rates are really, really important because they dictate what you pay. And personally, as I look at this, if it was me, when I see a difference of $62, when I see a difference of $77 on a monthly basis, I'm asking myself, like, how much Taco Bell could I buy for that? How much dim sum could I get with that? And that's like because I'm hungry. If I'm being realistic with myself, the other question I ask is, if I put that $77 every single month into, let's say, VU in the stock market, what's that return going to look like 30 years from now? If I did that every single month, 30 years from now, when I fully intend for Olivia and I to be off adventuring somewhere, retired, drinking a Mai Tai on a beach, that $77 a month compounding in a marketplace that earns on average, 5 to 10% these days. It's like 12%. I kind of like the sound of that. It's different for every person, but I think all of us are working under the same thing. We want more for less. Who doesn't? So if you're looking at buying, if you're looking at upgrading your space, if you're looking at selling, from here until forever, it's always going to be a good time to buy, and it's always going to be a good time to sell if your finances are in order and if you're emotionally and mentally prepared. That's never going to change. But there is a rare, almost like golden opportunity that we have been existing in for most of 2020 and most of 2021, and that is going to start to shift. So just things to consider. Moving away to the final takeaways. Key takeaway number 1, maybe the market will crash. Well, after talking about median sales price increases, I know the people that were waiting for the market to crash a year ago are kicking themselves, because if they could afford a 3-bed, 2-bath, well, at a 20.4% increase, now they can afford a 2-bed, 1-bath. And if they were looking at, 1,400 square feet, they might be looking at 1,000, maybe 1,100. That doesn't feel quite as good, So the cost of waiting for a market to crash, it's extremely speculative. None of the analysts are forecasting that at this point. So you kind of have to believe that we're at where we're at. The thing that I talk to clients about is that, for example, let's say that you're spending $1,000 every single month on rent, which is ridiculously low for the vacancy rate that we're at. But let's just go for easy numbers. You're going to spend $12,000 in rent. Let's say that you stay there for 5 years. So you're going to spend $60,000 in rent. Do you get any of that back? No, you don't get any of that back. So let's say that you were spending that on a home. You get all the equity. You get all the appreciation. Sounds a lot better to me. Final key takeaway. There's no homes for sale. There are more listings in Ellensburg than I think most people realize. The big thing is that they're moving really fast if they're in a competitive price point. I'm looking at you if you're looking at $400,000 and below. If you think that home is awesome, I guarantee you 5 other buyers do as well. So when I harp on you about getting pre-approved, it's because I love you. Get pre-approved and be ready to pull the trigger. Have a very real understanding of what your budgetary constraints are, what your max purchase price would be. Let's look 5% below that so that when you find the home, if there are other people pulling up to the table, you have room to negotiate. You have room to increase your offer. Work with an agent. On the buyer side, we're free. The seller side pays for it. And I think it's really advisable. You would not represent yourself in court. So I don't know why you would represent yourself in a real estate transaction if you can have a professional work for you for free on the buyer side of things. And the only thing I would say caveat-wise is if you know what a 35R is, if you can tell me what earnest money is in 5 sentences or less, if you can talk with me about what title is and why it's important and what a mechanic's lien is and why we should look for it and what an easement is and why it could be detrimental. If you can tell me all of those things, then by all means, girl, do the dang thing. Go represent yourself. If you can't, think about working with a buyer's agent when you are towing into the market. And the big one, which I think is encompassed in the previous 3, is prepare early, save often. You will never kick yourself for having more money available to you. And you will never kick yourself for being prepared, talking with a lender and working at a more relaxed pace versus, oh my God, I saw the house that I really want. And then you have to hurry up, right? So these are the key takeaways. This is what's going on in the market in the month of November. I really encourage you, if you are kind of curious and like maybe you want to do something, let's just get a coffee. Let's go chat. Throw some comments if you have questions, slide into the DMs if you have questions, and thank you so much for tuning in to this month's market meeting.